got to get the signal from Wes. Good? Good evening, everyone. It being 7:30 on Tuesday, February 7th, 2023, we will begin our town council meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we please have a moment of silence for all those who serve in our military at home and abroad and for their families? Thank you. Clerk Semino, roll call vote, please.
Councilor Barrica?
Here.
Councilor Flaherty?
Here.
Councilor Hume?
Here.
Councilor Mackin?
Here.
Councilor Maglio?
Here.
Councilor O'Brien?
Present.
Councilor Reynolds?
Here.
Councilor Ringus?
Here.
Councilor Ryan?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Clerk Semino. We have two councilors participating remotely this evening, so we will be taking all our votes by roll call. With that, we will move on to announcements. We do have an update on the charter review. I would like to first say the next meeting is scheduled for Saturday, March 4th at 1 p.m. And I know Councilor Hume and Councilor Ringus are our council members who are on the Charter Review Committee. Clerk Semino, is Councilor Hume prepared to give an update?
Prepared.
Okay.
Councilor Ringus, did you want to?
You know what, to be completely honest, we have been, the Charter Review Committee has been meeting in regards to, over the past sort of pre-COVID and then as COVID sort of ended and we got back to it, on the charter. The charter, obviously, for those sitting in the audience or at home, is in essence the document that guides how we govern ourselves here in town. You could look at it as sort of Braintree's Constitution, for lack of a better word. The Charter Review Committee is made up of various individuals, including two councilors. Former Chief of Staff Peter Morin is the chair of that committee, and we also have representatives from across the spectrum of the Braintree community, including most recently adding Lisa Heeger, who is obviously the chairperson of the school committee. One of the biggest things that the Charter Review Committee wanted to establish was getting resident input in terms of moving forward in this sort of review process. There had been a previous sort of public hearing held for folks to come out and sort of discuss what their feelings on the charter were. It is, the current charter is available on the Braintree website if you wanted to review, and it does, when I say it, it sort of really details every sort of aspect of the government here in town. We do have an upcoming meeting, again, I believe it is Saturday...
March 4th at 1 p.m.
March 4th, 1 to 3 p.m. here at Cahill Auditorium. So anybody who wants to come in, sort of offer their insight or what their feelings are on the current sort of state of the charter is welcome to come and express their opinions. That is sort of a public hearing, so anyone is allowed to come to the podium and speak.
Thank you very much, Councilor Ringus. Moving on to our next announcement, one of the best parts of this job is recognizing the achievements of our residents, and tonight I am delighted to turn the floor over to Councilor Ringus for just such a recognition.
Thank you, President Barrica. Emily, I would call you up to the podium. So as she walks up, I just want to introduce, this is Emily Lehane. Emily is a lifelong Braintree resident. She has come up playing soccer through our town, playing initially for Braintree Youth Soccer, Braintree Travel Soccer, and then some various clubs in the area, including AFC and NEFC over the years. She is currently a senior at Blue Hills Regional High School, and she recently finished up her high school career this past fall, and she set some pretty cool records. Emily is now the all-time leading points leader in Blue Hills High School history, and that is not just for females. not just for females, but for males and females alike. So she is, in the history of Blue Hill School, she is the all-time points leader. So if you're not familiar with soccer, there's different ways that you can establish points. The amount of goals you score, the amount of assists you get, all kind of come together to create your points record. So Emily is the all-time points record leader. She's the all-time goals scored leader, and she's the all-time assist leader in the history of Blue Hills, and that is a huge accomplishment. On top of that, which I think even pushes it up just a little bit further, is Emily had to deal with the fact that she had a very COVID-shortened season. So I think it was your sophomore year, Blue Hills was one of those schools that didn't get right back into sort of fall sports, so she had to play sort of a hybrid season, so she didn't have as many games as many of the kids over the years have had. So that's a huge accomplishment in of itself. And one more thing, which I think is the coolest thing. Emily has actually done this. Emily can only see in one eye. So Emily has done this while blind in one eye. And I think that is even a bigger accomplishment, to show the determination that you went through to sort of come back from that injury and to establish yourself and set these records. I think it's just something that the whole town is proud of, and I wanted everyone to be able to recognize you here tonight for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And before I turn it over to some of the other counselors, I'll do two things. One is that I wanted to introduce your family, because anytime we have these sort of things, I think it's the family that is behind you, driving you to these practices and getting you to these games. So you're here with your dad, John, your mom, Doreen, and your sisters, Jenna and Jules, who are also great soccer players in their own right. We are going to present to you a little certificate a little bit later, because I'm sure some of the counselors may want to talk to you. And it is going to read that Braintree Town Council, in recognition of Emily Lahane, is recognized by the Braintree Town Council as the Blue Hills Regional High School all-time leading scorer / points leader. Congratulations on your hard work and dedication, and we wish you continued success in your future endeavors. So,
Thank you.
congratulations, Emily.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere yet, because there may be
Okay,
some people that
okay.
want to congratulate you further.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Counselor Ringus, and congratulations, Emily. I will turn it over to anyone else on the floor, and then we would love to get a photo with you as well.
Sure.
Counselor Reynolds.
Madam President, Emily, that is a tremendous accomplishment.
Thank you.
Very, very impressed, and you're a great example, I'm sure, for a lot of folks. You know, that we all have, some of us have to face with, let's just say, not the full set of abilities. And as Council Ringus pointed out, that's a tremendous ability that you've shown.
Thank you.
And your family must be tremendously proud. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about your career as you move forward.
Sure.
Counselor Ryan.
Thank you, Madam President. Emily, congratulations. It's a tremendous accomplishment. It's, you know, we think of the students at Braintree High School, and we have them before us for some of the wonderful things they do, and it's so nice to have one of our young ladies that's attending Blue Hills to come here. The only time we really talk about Blue Hills is when we're approving the budget, so it's nice to see, it's nice to see you really flourishing up at Blue Hills. It's a beautiful school, and it's a wonderful school for what it does for the trades and different avenues for young people to succeed. So it's wonderful to see you doing so well, and I wish you the best. Are you going to school after this? Are you thinking?
I might go to like a Massasoit or something to like save money. I don't know what I really want to do, so I don't want to spend like a lot of money if I don't know what I want to do.
Wow, you sound like you're very smart too. Is not only very good in athletics, but also smart. That's a wonderful plan. So I just want to say congratulations.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Counselor Ryan. Counselor Maglio.
You rock, Emily. Good for you.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you, Counselor Maglio. Counselor Flaherty.
When somebody loves something as much as you clearly love soccer, it always shows. And congratulations to you on all the success that you have seen in your career as a soccer player. And congratulations especially on the perseverance that you showed when things got tough. Lots of people would have felt like it was totally understandable and fine if you decided to set that aside and pursue something else, but you didn't. And so here you are,
Yeah.
showing everybody else just how awesome you are. And thank you for being such an inspiration to everybody here.
Thank you. Thank you. Excellent. Clerk Semino, if you don't mind taking a photo with the council, and Emily, that would be great. And Emily, we could probably stand in front of our desks here. Yeah, perfect. All right, that's a great way to start out the night, and thank you again to the Lehane family for joining us this evening. Are there any other announcements from the counselors before we move on to the other items on our agenda? All right. At this time, if there are no objections, I would like to offer to approve both sets of minutes in one motion.
So moved.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes of December 6th and December 20th, 2022. Clerk Semino, roll call, please.
Council Berica?
Yes.
Council Flaherty?
Yes.
Council Hume for approval of minutes? Aye. Council Mackin? Aye. Council Maglio?
Aye.
Council O'Brien?
Aye.
Council Reynolds?
Aye.
Council Ringus?
Aye.
Council Ryan?
Aye.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, we will move on to our communications, and I'm very happy to introduce, we have with us this evening Fire Lieutenant Freddie Viola and some of the other members of his team. And the Braintree Fire Department is with us tonight to share with both the council and residents in an emergency. So, Lieutenant Viola, thank you for joining us, and
Thank you.
you have the floor.
Thanks for having me, and as a BHR alum, Warriors. See that?
All right.
Nice. Great job, though. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for having me tonight. I want to first introduce my crew. To my left and your right, first and foremost, Lieutenant Warren Frederick and Tom Bowes Jr. over there, and then Robbie Loud. Those are firefighter EMTs that are here to help me and to show a little bit about what we're going to talk about tonight. For those of you that don't know me, Freddie Viola, I'm a lieutenant on the fire department, but I'm also the EMS coordinator. Under the guise of Chief O'Brien and his leadership, my job is to ensure quality assurance, quality control for emergency medical services for the fire department. That includes, but not limited to, training, coming up with new ideas for training, and making sure that the EMTs and paramedics get their recertification hours in as well in between all of that. And handle any cases along with our partners, Brewster Ambulance, that might come up where we have discrepancies, time delays, anything like that. And we try to correct those things quickly in that circle of people. It's important that people know what the fire department does. A lot of times we'll get that look when after a 911 call, we go to walk up to someone's house and they're like, I don't have a fire. But it is important to know that all of our firefighters are EMTs. 10% of our officer corps are EMTs and paramedics. Myself, I'm a paramedic. 50% of those officers were at one time EMTs or paramedics. They kind of let that, they either let their certification go or it was prior to, right now they have to be. Anyone hired after, I think it was 1996 is an EMT. So our whole firefighting force is EMT. So when we come to your house, we have the basic life support, which is run by OEMS, and is overseen by OEMS, Massachusetts Department of Public Health, Office of Emergency Medical Services. That's what they're our bosses, basically. On top of the standard equipment, we also cardiac defibrillation, epinephrine pens, Narcan, of course, and we have a license for albuterol, which anyone who's an asthmatic knows what albuterol can do. So all of these tools that we have, we can use on our residents and our visitors and stabilize a situation for the Brewster ambulance people to come in and administer advanced life support on top of that, which is IVs, 42 different medicines, I believe it's up to now, and things like that. So it's important that people know that that's what we do, and we constantly train for that. In a cardiac arrest situation, this is for everybody, the first thing that you should do is activate the EMS system or call 911. I'm Italian, so I'm going to pick on the Italians. We tend to have Italian hysterical disease, so we'll call every relative before we decide to call for the poor person who needs help. But don't do that if you can help it. Dial 911, and you'll get a series of questions asked of you, including your phone number and your location, because not all dispatchers know the town of Braintree, and they don't know where you are, so they need to ask you those things and have a callback number in case you get disconnected. So that's an important feature. Also, cell phones, some towns have it, some towns don't. If you call 911 with a cell phone, somebody in the turret of the state police is going to answer, and they're out in Framingham or wherever the cell tower connected, and they're going to be like, Hobart Street and where? Braintree? Okay, hang on a sec. What's it near? So they might ask you some more additional questions because they're not familiar with the geographic location you're in. Alrighty, so that's a very important thing. Activate the EMS system fast. Time is muscle when it comes to a cardiac arrest, and brain, not only a cardiac muscle, but getting oxygen to brain cells is very important. So the faster you call, the faster we can get there. We're strategically placed throughout the town, 3 different locations, and our run time is about 3 minutes to anywhere, with the exception of what we call the Northwest Corridor, which is basically the end of Wood Road. That might take us a little bit longer. And when it's Christmas time, we won't pick on the plaza too much, but the Christmas time at the plaza, it's sort of a nightmare, so it will delay that response. And Brewster is located here at Garden Park, which is over next to basically where Dunkin' Donuts at Hancock and Plain is. And they have a garage down in Mill Lane in East Braintree, so they're strategically placed as well. Because you can't forget the folks in East Braintree. Right, in East Braintree? Yes, there you go. So without further ado, let's bring over our mannequin. This is Brad. So when we typically get a phone call, there may or may not be CPR going on. If the person on the phone is being coached by the dispatcher, or they may be just too hysterical to do it, or don't understand what they're saying. But a lot of times we'll get there and there'll be pre-arrival instructions going on, or CPR will be in progress. So one of the things that we were able to benefit from some of the earmark funds that we got last year was we did some research and we found to buy equipment. We had really bad equipment. We replaced all of our EMS bags and the contents within them. We were able to upgrade our licensing and get all the drugs I mentioned in the beginning. And then we bought a machine called the Lucas CPR machine. When the rep first came to me, I said, great idea, too expensive, thanks very much. The chief said the same thing. It's ridiculous, the amount of money that it costs. But when the earmark funds came in, thanks to our legislature and the council and the Braintree Community Partnership, we were able to disperse those funds smartly, get the equipment that we needed, and then enhance the equipment that we have. So come on over. So 911 call comes in, 123 Main Street, person's down, they're in cardiac arrest. We walk in with a crew just like this. So they're gonna assess him. Brad's not doing too well, so we're gonna begin CPR or take over for that person who's doing it. We're going to put on an automatic external defibrillator. You can hear that talking. What that will do is that takes a 6-second analyze of the heart, and there's only 2 rhythms that it will shock, which is ventricular tachycardia and ventricular fibrillation. So it's basically really squiggly lines. If it recognizes those squiggly lines, it will call for a shock. In this particular case, we'll just say that we didn't get a shock notification, so we're just going to go ahead and hook up the Lucas. You can shut that off, Rob. Now, in the meantime, the lieutenant's going to breathe for him. Basically, we're going to manually breathe for you because when your heart stops, you're not breathing either. So here's the Lucas device. We take the back plate. The back plate goes behind the patient in or about the area of the chest that we're going to compress. And anyone who knows CPR or had CPR before stands for cardiopulmonary resuscitation. So we're going to do a series of compressions on the heart to move blood around, and we're going to introduce oxygen into the blood to move that blood and oxygen throughout the body. So the Lucas machine is almost set up. You see how quick that was? So we're still going to maintain an airway, and we're going to do CPR in the middle. Once that, you'll see the plunger goes down on the chest. It goes down and automatically starts doing CPR. So it's already pre-programmed to the most current American Heart Association standard, which is 30 and 2 right now. And it will continue to do that throughout the entire call. So now Tom is free. A lot of times what was happening is we'd be doing CPR. About 2 minutes in, he'd switch out with me. The guy has to walk around and switch out. Now they're stopping CPR because they're switching out. Then it gets like this, and I'll be like, hey, Tom, do me a favor, go out to the truck and grab another bag. We need another bag. Look, I'm not even doing it right. And it's sort of, human error starts to come into play as time goes on, people get tired, people switch out. We got to go down and out a stairway. Now we can strap the hands up to the side of the striker, to the Lucas, and then we can carry the person down the stairs on a backboard while that's still compressing their heart, never losing that very important life-saving compressions. So you guys, you can shut that off. It'll go, the batteries are good for about 45 minutes. Yes, that's right. There is a feature that you can plug it into the ambulance in the back. And we do have a spare battery too, so typically we're not on calls for that long a period of time. However, we do have a fireboat, and it is called out for rescues. If we had to pull someone out of the water, we were underway, a little bit away from offshore, we would be able to run that while we're driving in, and everybody else can pay attention to what has to be paid attention to on the boat. So it's a cool machine. I'm a little bit of an EMS nerd, so I really like it. We only had one that we got from the earmark funding, and we were sort of shuttling it all around town when we got these calls. But then when the chief and the town went to renegotiate a contract with Brewster, they included these in Engine 3, East Side, and the Highlands. So now there's one in every district available to all of our residents and visitors, and to us it makes our job a little bit easier, but more importantly, it's more effective. And that's not a knock on anybody that I work with. We're all very good at what we do, but over time and going downstairs and doing all that kind of stuff, it was, we're kind of stopping CPR. And even when you go into the ER to drop the patient off, if you stop, the doctor's yelling at you, hey, continue compressions. So you're dripping with sweat like I am right now, and you have to, you have to keep going because that's what the doc wants, right? Only time that we would not use that is if for serious trauma to the chest, open chest trauma or stuff like that. If it's a car accident and they're ripped open, we probably wouldn't throw that on them. I'm sorry, do you have a question? Actually, it looks like that's a small thing, but it does, because we're going up under your arms, basically, it will fit most people. If someone is too large, which can happen, we would just revert back to our old standard of CPR. There's not an XL version or anything like that, but that was the question we had when we first had our demo, is what about some of the bigger patients that we have that might not go around them? And we took one of the, not me, but that we took a bigger guy and put him, and it worked. So, it did go right around him and worked pretty good. So.
Sorry, go ahead.
No,
Thank you.
Again, I thank you for the opportunity. It's important when the legislature gives us that kind of money, and I think we should spend it smartly and, and get things that we would really need and that more importantly are going to help our residents. So with that, I won't kill you with information, but.
I'd like to just open it up to the counselors to see if there's any questions from the council. Counselors? Counselor Reynolds?
Sir.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Great presentation.
Thank
I mean, the whole crew, I've seen you guys in action, and it's outstanding work you do. You get right to it. My question on that machine itself, the pressure that comes down, is that calibrated, or is that just something that, I mean, depending upon if it's a child, it's a senior, it's a middle-aged adult?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. It knows by the pressure that we put down on it, by the length of that drop down. If it was a child, it's going to go a lot further than that of an adult, or even an older person that's real skinny. It will make that adjustment. It's all pre-programmed for those different CPR types, if you will. Because with a child, we'd use one hand, so a little less pressure, a little less depth. We wouldn't use it on an infant; it's too big for that. But to answer your question, yeah, it does know, and it adjusts itself, which is pretty cool.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. I have a question for you, Lieutenant.
Sure.
And thank you again for your time this evening. I think this is so helpful. Have we been able to save life or lives with this new device?
We have. It's actually made a big difference. Not every time. Sometimes CPR or cardiac arrest is so catastrophic internally that no amount of tools or CPR is going to save somebody, unfortunately. But we have had success. I was actually just when I was conversing with the police outside, they were saying that they saw it the other night, and as far as they knew, the gentleman was still around, so that's good.
That's excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and thank you to the crew for coming, and we'll welcome you back another time.
Do you have another question? If that's all right, sorry. Sure. In Braintree, we have 3 ambulances that are dedicated to the town that are advanced life support. Yeah, so when you call 911, that's what you should expect at your door. After the 3, and it happens a lot where we'll go more than 3 deep on a medical call, sometimes it's up to 5 and 6, you may not, but they'll shuttle someone over from Quincy, or they have a little, what they call a fly car. It's a little Ford Explorer that has a medic in it. And they'll start that way, if you will. And then some of these guys, I've instructed them if we don't have time, and it is an ALS call, they can call the neighboring fire departments to come in relief if they need it with the ambulances. But that's a great question, and it's good that the people that are watching can know that. So.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
All right, moving on to our old business for the evening. We're going to begin with item 22073, Planning Board, zoning bylaw text amendment related to floodplain, or take up any action relative thereto. This item is a public hearing, so for tonight, we will vote to open the public hearing, then we will hear from staff, the public, and the council. Then we need to vote to close the public hearing, and then finally, we vote on the motion at hand, just so people know what the procedure is for this evening. So with that, I would ask, is there a motion to open the public hearing for order 22073?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Councilors Ryan and Ringus. Clerk Semino, roll call to open the public hearing.
Counselor Baraka.
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty.
Yes.
Counselor Hume. Counselor Mackin. Aye. Counselor Maglio.
Aye.
Counselor O'Brien.
Aye.
Counselor Reynolds.
Aye.
Counselor Ringus.
Aye.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you very much. With that, I will now refer to Councilor Ringus, Chairman of the Ordinance and Rules Committee, for the recommendation on Order 22073.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Ordinance and Rules met on February 1st, and we voted unanimously for a favorable recommendation for this to the full council. That was a 3-0 vote.
Thank you very much, Councilor Ringus. With that, Director Santucci Razzi, our Planning Director, I will turn the floor over to you.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'm not going to be nearly as exciting as our most recent presentation, but hopefully floodplain is equally important in a different kind of way. Just a little bit of history, and this is in the report that I provided from the Planning Board. Braintree was subject to a community visit. DCR was our representative, but they were sort of leading the charge on behalf of FEMA. And part of that visit included reviewing different files that we have in the office, meeting with myself and members of our staff in the planning office, and speaking with the building inspector as well. There's different levels of floodplain, things in the ordinance related to new development, and then the building code also captures a portion of that, which we refer to as a substantial improvement. If you're already in the floodplain and you're going to be doing work to your property, there are different things that are triggered from that matter. So went through the visit, they looked in our files, they liked most of what they saw. There were a few things that the building inspector needed to circle back on. And then two sort of outputs from this visit. The first one is FEMA continues to update sort of their guidance and their, quote, model bylaw and what they would like communities to do as things change. Obviously, we have a lot of climate issues, and as we know, the flooding has been increasing year after year. The 100-year storm is, a much more frequent occurrence now. So they continue to update sort of their regulations. And part of this visit was updating our local ordinance to be in compliance with FEMA. And another part of it was to ensure that we continue to maintain our community rating system scoring, which is over and above our floodplain ordinance that we administer in the office, that translates to a 15% discount on Braintree residents that get flood insurance. So sort of all of these things together. So what we did was we looked at our current ordinance, and then we looked at the model bylaw, and I want to thank Connor Murphy on our staff. He did most of the matching up what's here, what's not there. There was a lot of different definitions that were added. That was some of the primary things. Some different clarifications, and then some sections that were modified to mirror any changes that come in the building code. So an example would be the building code is looking to change the elevations in which you need to be above the floodplain elevations, depending if you're in the AE zone or if you're in a velocity zone. So we made some changes so that the ordinance would continue to mirror those changes, and every time the building code changed, we don't have to go back and update our ordinance. And that's basically what's in front of the council this evening. The second part that will be coming, it was supposed to already have happened, but there's been some delays with the Charles River watershed mapping, and that is updates to the actual floodplain maps. So those are the maps that we look out, and we look up your property, and we say, okay, floodplain is elevation X in this particular zone. This is your elevation, and you're impacted by the floodplain or you're not. So they're continuing to do some additional mapping. We did see the draft maps in the spring, and we coordinated with engineering, and they did some overlays with the GIS, and we sent notices to people that were being impacted. Minor changes, nothing like what happened in 2012. Those were some major changes to the plans. So we sent notices out to people so that they could be informed of the changes. And again, there are some people that are going from 100-year floodplain to 5, meaning those areas are less susceptible to flooding, and then there's some people that are going from the 5 to the 100. Again, that's still a work in progress. Those maps could change again when we do receive notice from Joy, our contact at the state, and another gentleman at DCR as well. that those have been ready. We will take a look at them. We will do that comparison again to see what, if anything, has changed since the previous drafts. And then we would put forth a second amendment to the bylaw. You have to actually reference the maps and the panels in the ordinance. We asked if we could say, as most recently amended by FEMA, so that we could kind of clean it up all at once. That wasn't acceptable. So there will be a future change as well for the maps.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Santucci-Razzi. Are there any questions from the council on this matter? Councilor Ryan?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So this is, I think I know a little bit about this stuff, and I still find it, it's not an easy read.
No.
But what we're doing here is this is further protecting people that live within floodplain zones in the town of Braintree.
Correct. And updating as different trends and FEMA sees different mitigating factors and solutions that can help people protect their assets.
I think, you know, I've seen some real damage to homes in Braintree as a result of flooding. And back when I was a selectman, myself and Chuck Kokoris, we went walking through the Bestick Road neighborhood after they had major flooding, and I met my friend Carol. I can't think of Carol's last name, but she had her house flooded out, and several houses in the neighborhood got flooded out. It was horrible. And I think, and then back in 2010, we had the March of 2010, we had back-to-back rainstorms that were just horrible, and the Monadnock River overflowed for days down in, near my house, over near the Mobil gas station, right down the street from my house. So I really think that part of what I hope we're trying to accomplish here is making sure people that live within these floodplain zones in the town are aware that they live in these zones, and really giving them the recommendation that it would be in their best interest to get this type of flood insurance, because it's just horrible if their houses get flooded and they don't get it. And then when we get these maps that you're speaking of, I really would look forward to maybe someone coming to a council meeting and showing the maps, and maybe showing an existing map and a revised map and what changes have taken place, and really trying to get the word out to the residents, you know, making sure everybody knows where the floodplain zones are in the town, and really trying to, like, you know, give them information so they can make an informed decision how to protect their house. I think it's a very valuable thing that we could do in this public forum in the council meeting. So, and then you spoke about a 15% discount. What's that? The discount on what?
So that's, there's above and beyond the National Flood Insurance Protection Program is something called the Community Rating System. And that is additional measures that we have currently in our ordinance that we will continue to include, that give Braintree residents a 15% discount on their flood insurance, because we're part of this system. And I believe, I think our last score, I think the maximum score is, I want to say it's 7, and I believe we're at a 7 right now. So it's kind of just an additional layer of checks and balances. And unfortunately, some of the requirements in the floodplain are pretty stringent, and we try to explain to people that this is actually a protection. Unfortunately, sometimes it creates additional costs and things for homeowners, but it's worth the money given the situations that you had just described, Counselor. I can think of Kensington as well. That was...
So that's flood, you're talking about flood protection now, protecting the house, or the cost for the insurance?
The cost of insurance, yes. And then just kind of talking about the ordinance and explaining to people that while there are some additional things in here that people might think is a pain in the, you know, but it is providing an extra level of protection for their structure.
Okay. And with this floodplain zone and the flood protection we talk about maybe down at Watson Park and protecting town infrastructure, does that get tied together at all, or is that just?
the ordinance primarily deals with when you want to construct something in the floodplain and where that needs to be and how that needs to be elevated and the utilities and the grades away from the foundation and things like that. The berm at Watson Park was a preventative measure put in place based on forecasting flood elevations in the future. So similar idea, they're both protection methods. What's in the ordinance is protections, and that was a protection, but a little bit different.
Okay, and are we talking the same flood elevations?
No.
We're not?
No, the flood elevations throughout town vary
Based on the body of water?
based on the source that would cause the flooding in that, yeah. You'd be surprised. We have, I always think of Zampine Farm, but the floodplain elevation out there is 105.
Good
And it's
point.
100 and, but you can actually see that floodplain line come right up to that elevation. So it varies throughout the community.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Counselor Ryan. Any other counselors have questions? Counselor Maglio.
A couple of questions. I was also going to ask about the map. I think it's important to be able to see that visual, so whenever you get that, I'd be interested in seeing that. So I had a house in a floodplain, and I thought, get a little flood insurance, no big deal. It was a huge deal,
Yeah.
a huge deal. And luckily, my flood insurance, which was astronomical to try and take that on, as well as a mortgage, and, this was when I was single. So the fact is, the flood insurance is pretty high, and it's not optional. It's required if you have a mortgage.
Correct.
And that continues to exist, and that's a federal requirement. So for folks who are building, you mentioned that this is for new structures. If they're self-financing, and there's no mortgage, there's no federal requirement that they get flood insurance, right? So that's where a lot of these protections would kind of...
They would still need to comply with the ordinance, but if they did not have that note attached to the property, there would not be a requirement. And to that point, a lot of older people don't have mortgages anymore, and they just see that as an expense, and they say, I've been here for 60 years, nothing's ever happened, and a lot of people forego the flood insurance. And unfortunately, if there's a situation, they're not going to be protected.
So one of the things that the feds offered at the time, that FEMA offered, and it was done through the municipality that I lived in, was to offer rebates back to homeowners if they raised their home, if they moved any heating and other kinds of things, and electricity and everything from their basement to a higher level. Do those kinds of programs and options still exist?
I'm not sure if that particular program does. I can find out, though. And kind of what you were speaking of is what the substantial improvement is, essentially. So if you have a ranch house and you're in the floodplain and you want to put a second floor and make it all fancy, the substantial improvement is if you increase the value of just the dwelling, not the land. So think of your tax bill, think of your dwelling value by 50%. What Councilor Maglio just spoke of has to happen. You are required to elevate your house out of the floodplain. And when you think again about the house value, and if anyone's done any home improvements recently, you add a second floor, you're very likely going to trigger that. And that's where what I was explaining to Councilor Ryan, where people get pretty upset. They're like, I just want to put a second floor on, I'm not touching the first floor. And I'm like, so we've had some situations where unfortunately people have gotten pretty upset about that, but we try to, again, this is a protection, this is a federal requirement, and we try to explain it best as we can to people.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Maglio. Any other counselors have questions? Counselor Reynolds?
President. Welcome, Director Santucci Rossi.
Good evening.
Great to hear from you. And I think this has been excellent points raised by the two previous speakers here. I want to get an understanding, kind of a context between Does the floodplain in our wetland districts, is there any kind of a multiplier in the floodplain when it coexists, or can it coexist in a wetlands area, or any kind of crossover, multiplier effect or anything like that?
Yeah, so multiplier wouldn't be a word I would use to describe it. They can coexist, though. You could have a body of water or a lower area, an isolated area that contains water that has a bordered vegetated wetland around it. And then you could have an elevation in that particular area that also dictates a floodplain jurisdiction. So different criteria, different performance measures for a wetland versus a floodplain, and if they both coexisted, both of those criteria and jurisdictions would apply. In Braintree, the Conservation Commission oversees wetlands, and the floodplain is overseen by both the Conservation Commission and also the Planning Board.
Great, thank you. Excellent answer. It helps me understand the two and the differences. My next question for you is, I live in an area that's, I'm going to say, at least 125 feet above sea level. So, I mean, there isn't really, you would think, any flooding that goes on when you're in the higher elevations. However, I've had neighbors that had serious flooding, and I know one of the speakers, Councilor Ryan, spoke about some of the rains that we had back in 2010, 2012, where neighbors of mine had serious flooding issues, and they were actually in a higher elevation than I was. Is that I mean, is there any factoring of that, or is that just kind of an outlier?
And again, there are portions of the community that are at higher elevations that do experience flooding and that are in regulatory floodplains. When we get those maps, I'm already kind of brainstorming. We'll have the old ones with an overlay. We'll work with the engineering department, and the elevations are on those as well. If anyone's interested, in the meantime, our town GIS has a FEMA floodplain layer. So you can access the GIS and just click on the FEMA layer, and you'll see the different colors that will come up. It will highlight the floodway, which is typically the water body and very little bit on either side. And then you'll see the 100-year floodplain, and then you'll see the 500-year floodplain. So you can see, and you'd be surprised at where some of these areas are.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilor Ryan. Councilor Reynolds, and I see Councilor Ryan's hand.
Because my house, I have a river behind my house when it rains out and coming off a hill, and I know I'm not in a floodplain zone, but it's just having a hill behind my house, and my sump pump will run in my basement for days when it rains out. So it's very, just because you don't live in a floodplain zone doesn't mean you're going to not get water in your house.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Just for residents watching, the GIS map that Director Santucci Razi referenced, the best, easiest way to find it is to type GIS into the search bar on braintreema.gov. It will bring that up, and it's a really great resource.
To add to that, Madam Chairman, is the GIS map going to get updated when they come out with the new floodplain zones?
Yes, it will.
Ours. Okay,
Yes,
thank
it will. And if there's any specific questions from residents, they can contact our office. We field calls constantly. Am I in the floodplain? Am I in the floodplain? People looking to buy, is this house in the floodplain? Doing a little bit of due diligence. So we're available to answer any questions.
Thank you.
As well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay, this is a public hearing. If there are members of the public who want to speak on the floodplain text amendment, you are welcome to do so. Seeing none. All right. In that case, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing for Order 22073.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilors Ryan and Ringus. Clerk Semino, roll call vote, please.
Counselor Baraka?
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty?
Yes.
Counselor Hume? Counselor Mackin? Aye. Counselor Maglio?
Aye.
Counselor O'Brien?
Aye.
Counselor Reynolds?
Aye.
Counselor Ringus?
Aye.
Counselor Ryan?
Aye.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to preface this by saying this is a very long motion, so please stick with us. Is there a motion for Order 22073?
Motion that the town council vote to amend the Braintree zoning ordinances by accepting the text amendments related to floodplain 135-1310 districts established in 135-608 flood protection district, which adopt the pertinent sections of the FEMA model bylaw required to maintain compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program. The zoning text amendments have been favorably recommended by the Planning Board as detailed in its report to the Town Council dated January 17, 2023. The zoning text amendments read as follows. 1. Table of Contents. Amend Title Section 135-608 Current Wetlands and Flood Protection Districts. 2. Proposed Floodplain Protection District. 2. Article 3, Section 135-301 Establishment of Districts. Amend the name of the district Current Wetlands and Floodplain Protection Districts to Proposed Floodplain Protection District. 3. Article 6, Section 135-608 Wetlands and Floodplain Protection District. A. Amend the title of Section 135-608 Current Wetlands and Floodplain Protection Districts to Proposed Floodplain and Protection District. B. Delete existing Section 135-608 in its entirety and replace it with the new text. Section 135-608 Floodplain Protection District. The floodplain management regulations found in this floodplain overlay district section shall take precedent over any less restrictive, conflicting local laws, ordinances, or code. A. Purpose. The purpose of the floodplain protection district is to 1. Protect the health and safety of persons and property against 100-year frequency flooding and the hazard of water inundation. 2. Eliminate new hazards to emergency response officials. 3. Control 100-year frequency flooding and regulate the development of land and construction of buildings and structures within the district. 4. Avoid the loss of utility services, which, if damaged by flooding, would disrupt or shut down the utility network and impact regions of the community beyond the site of flooding. B. Definitions for the purpose of this article. The following terms shall have the meanings indicated. Critical facility. Those facilities for which even a slight chance of flooding could endanger public safety. Critical facilities including the following 3 categories. 1. Facilities such as liquefied natural gas terminals and facilities which produce and/or store highly volatile, toxic, or water-reactive materials. 2. Hospitals, schools, nursing homes, and other similar facilities where the safety of the occupants may be threatened by floodwaters. 3. Those facilities which, if flooded, would cause the loss of irreplaceable public records or cause the loss of or disruption to utilities or emergency services. Development. Any man-made change to improve or unimproved real estate, including but not limited to building or other structures, mining, dredging, filling, grading, paving, excavation, or drilling operations or storage of equipment and materials. U.S. Code of Federal Regulations, Title 44, Part 59. Floodway. The channel of the river, creek, or other watercourse and the adjacent land areas must be reserved in order to discharge the base flood without cumulatively increasing the water surface elevation more than a designated height. Base Code, Chapter 2, Section 202. Functional dependent use, a use which cannot perform its intended purpose unless it is located or carried out in close proximity to water. The term includes only docking facilities, port facilities that are necessary for the loading and unloading of cargo or passengers, in shipbuilding and ship repair facilities, but do not include long-term storage or related manufacturing facilities. U.S. Code of Federal Regulations, Title 44, Part 59, also reference standard ASCE 2414. Highest adjacent grade, the highest natural elevation of the ground surface prior to the construction next to the proposed walls of a structure. U.S. Code of Federal Regulations, Title 44, Part 59. Historical structure is any structure that is, 1, listed individually in the National Register of Historic Places, a listing maintained by the Department of Interior, or preliminary determined by the Secretary of the Interior as meeting the requirements for living individual listing on the National Register. 2, certified or preliminary determined by the Secretary of the Interior as contributing to the historic significance of a registered historic district or a district preliminarily determined by the Secretary to qualify as a registered historic district. 3, individually listed on a state inventory of historic places in states with historic preservation programs which have been approved by the Secretary of the Interior, or 4, individually listed on a local inventory of historic places and communities with historic preservation programs that have been certified either 1, by an approved state program as determined by the Secretary of the Interior, or 2, directly by the Secretary of the Interior in states without approved programs, U.S. Code of Federal Regulations, Title 44, Part 59, page 3. New construction, structures for which the start of the construction commenced on or after the effective date of the first floodplain management code regulation ordinance or standard adopted by the authority having jurisdiction, including any subsequent improvements to such structures. New construction includes work determined to be substantially improved, reference standard ASCE 2414. Recreational vehicle means a vehicle which is 1, built on a single chassis, 2, 400 square feet or less when measured at the largest horizontal projection, 3, designed to be self-propelled or permanently towable by a light-duty truck, and 4, designed primarily not used as a permanent dwelling, but as a temporary living quarters for recreational, camping, travel, or seasonal use. U.S. Code of Federal Regulations, Title 44, Part 59. 5, for the purpose of this definition, snowmobiles, boats, and off-road vehicles shall be considered recreational vehicles. Regulatory floodway, see floodway. Special flood hazardous area, the land area adjacent to flood hazards and shown on a flood insurance rate map or other flood hazard map as Zone A, AE, A1, 30, A99, AR, AO, AH, V, VO, VE, or V130. Base Code, Chapter 2, Section 202. Start of construction, the date of issuance of, for new construction and substantial improvements to existing structures provided, the actual start of construction, repair, reconstruction, rehabilitation, addition, placement, or other improvements is within 180 days after the date of issuance. The start of the construction means the first placement of permanent construction of a building, including a manufactured home, on a site, such as the pouring of slabs or footings, installations of pilings, or construction of columns. Permanent construction does not include land preparation such as clearing, excavation, grading, or filling. The installation of streets or walkways, excavation for basement, footings, piers, or foundations, the erection of temporary forms, or the installation of accessory buildings such as garages or sheds not occupied as dwelling units or not part of the main building. For a substantial improvement, the actual start of construction means the first alteration of any wall, ceiling, floor, or other structural part of a building, whether or not the alteration affects the externalness dimension of the building. Base Code, Chapter 2, Section 202. Structure, a walled-in roof building which, including a gas or liquid storage tank that is principally above ground as well as a manufactured home. U.S. Code of Federal Regulations, Part 44, Regulations, Title 44, Part 59. Getting a little punchy. Substantial repair of a foundation. When work to repair or replace a foundation results in the repair or replacement of a portion of the foundation with the perimeter along the base of the foundation that equals or exceeds 50% of the perimeter of the base of the foundation measured in linear feet, or repair or replacement of 50% of the piles, columns, or pairs of a pile, column, or pair of supported foundation, the building official shall determine it to be substantially repair of a foundation. Applications determined by the building official to constitute substantial repair of a foundation shall require all existing portions of the entire building or structure to meet the requirements of 780 CMR, Massachusetts State Building Code, 9th edition, variance, a grant of relief by a community from the terms of a floodplain management regulation. U.S. Code of Federal Regulations, Title 44, Part 59, violation, the failure of a structure or other development to be fully compliant with the community's floodplain management regulations. A structure or other development without the elevation certificate, other certifications, or other evidence of compliance required in Section 60.3B5, C4, C10, D3, E2, E4, or E5 is presumed to be in violation until such as the documentation is provided. At such time, the documentation is provided. U.S. Code of Federal Regulations, Title 44, Part 59, definitions of flood zone, Zone A, an area of special flood hazard without water surface elevations determined, Zone A130 and Zone AE. Areas of special flood hazards with water surface elevations determined, Zone AH. Areas of special flood hazards having shallow water depths and/or unpredictable flow past between 1 and 3 feet and with water surface elevations determined, Zone AO. Area of special flood hazards having shallow water depths and/or unpredictable flow past between 1 and 3 feet. Velocity flow may be evident. Such flooding is characterized by ponding or sheet flow, Zone A99. Area of special flood hazard where enough progress has been made on a protective system such as dikes, dams, and levees to consider it complete for insurance rating purposes. Flood elevations may not be determined. Zones B, C, and X, areas of minimal and moderate flood hazards or areas of future conditions flood hazard. Zone X replaces Zone B and C on new and revised map. Zone V, area of special flood hazards without water surface elevations determined and with velocity that is inundated by tidal floods, coastal high hazard area. Zone V130, Zone VE, area of special flood hazards with water surface elevations determined with velocity that is inundated by tidal floods, coastal high hazard area. Disclaimer: the degree of flood protection required by this ordinance is considered reasonable but does not imply total flood protection. E, severability. If any section, provision, or portion of this ordinance is deemed to be unconstitutional or invalid by a court, the remainder of the ordinance shall be effective. F, designation. The town of Braintree hereby designates the position of Director of Planning and Community Development or their designee within the department to be the official floodplain administrator. G, floodplain district. The floodplain district is herein established as an overlay district. The district includes all special flood hazard areas within the town of Braintree designated as Zone A, AE, AH, AO, A99, V, or VE on the Norfolk County Flood Insurance Rate Map firm dated July 6, 2021, issued by the Federal Emergency Management Association Agency, FEMA, for the administration of the National Flood Insurance Program. The exact boundaries of the district shall be defined by the 1% chance-based flood elevation shown on the firm and further defined by the Norfolk County Flood Insurance Study, FIS, report dated July 6, 2021, or most recently enacted map as amended. The firm and FIS report are incorporated herein by reference and are on file with the Town Clerk, Planning and Community Development Department, Planning Board, Conservation Commission, Department of Municipal License and Inspections, and the Department of Public Works Engineering Division 2. In the absence of one above, if the SPGA determines that the flooding exists, the floodplain protection district boundary shall be 50 feet from any wetlands as defined in Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131. Wet meadows, marshes, swamps, or bogs that have an area less than 1,000 square feet shall be exempt from this section. 3, in A zones, in the absence of FEMA, BFE data, the floodway data, the building department will obtain, review, and reasonably utilize base flood elevation and floodway data current or projected available from the federal, state, or other source as criteria for requiring new construction, substantial improvements, or other development in Zone A, and as the basis for elevating residential structures to or above base flood level for floodproofing or elevating non-residential structures to or above base flood level and for prohibiting encroachments in floodways. 4, in zones A, A130, and AE along watercourses that have not had a regulatory floodway designated, the best available federal, state, local, or other floodway data shall be used to prohibit encroachments in floodways which would result in any increase in flood levels within the community during the occurrence of the base flood discharge. 5, in zones A130 and AE along watercourses that have a regulatory floodway designated on the town of Braintree's firm, encroachments are prohibited, including fill, new construction, substantial improvements, and other development within the adopted regulatory floodway unless it has been demonstrated through hydrological and hydraulic analysis performed in accordance with standard engineering practice that the proposed encroachment would not result in any increase in flood levels within the community during the occurrence of the base flood discharge. 6, within zones AOAH on the firm, adequate drainage paths must be provided around the structures on slopes to guide floodwaters around and away from proposed structures. H, uses. 1, for the purpose of this section, the floodplain protection district shall be considered to be overlaid on other zoning districts. 2, no permit shall be issued for the construction of a critical facility within the special flood hazard areas, SFHAS, or 500-year floodplain. 3, in the floodplain protection district, no building or structure shall be constructed, improved, altered, or modified, and no land shall be filled, excavated, or otherwise changed in grade, except pursuant to a special permit authorized by the SPGA. In alteration to an existing structure which does not affect flood storage or the floodway as determined by the planning staff shall not require a special permit under this section determined by the Director of Planning and Community Development or the SPGA. 4, all new buildings built on fill must be A, constructed on properly designed and compacted fill. Example, ASTMD 698 or equivalent, and B, fill extends at least 5 feet beyond the building walls before dropping below base flood elevation, and C, the fill has appropriate protection from erosion and scour. 5, alteration of sand dunes is prohibited when the alteration would increase potential flood damage. 6, all new construction within zone VE must be located landward of the reach of the mean high tide. 7, all subdivision proposals must be designed to assure that A, such proposals minimize flood damage. B, all public utilities and facilities are located and constructed to minimize or eliminate flood damage. And C, adequate drainage is provided to reduce exposure to flood hazards. 8, when proposed subdivisions or other developments greater than 50 lots or 5 acres, whichever is less, the proponent must provide technical data to determine base flood elevations for each developable parcel shown on the design plans. I, application for special permit. 1, each application for a special permit under this section shall file for a special permit in accordance with the provisions of Article 5 of this chapter and with any rules and regulations that may be adopted by the SPGA. All applications for special permits shall be processed in accordance with the provisions of Article 5 of this chapter. 2, in addition to the submission requirements stipulated in Article 5, the plans submitted shall show A, the location, dimensions, and elevation based on North American Vertical Datum, NAVD 88, of existing and proposed buildings and structures. B, existing and proposed contours at 1-foot intervals of the land based on NAVD datum. C, a contour delineating the 100-year storm frequency elevation shall be distinctly designated. D, other information deemed necessary by the SPGA to indicate the complete physical characteristics of the land and the proposed construction and/or grading. J, criteria for approval. The SPGA may issue a special permit pursuant to this section provided the SPGA finds that 1, all structures shall be elevated per requirements of the most recent version of the MA State Building Code based on the floodplain zone designation. 2, the proposed construction and/or change in grade will not degrade from the intent and purpose of the floodplain protection district. 3, the proposed construction and/or change in grade will not endanger the health and safety of the public. 4, the proposed construction and/or change in grade shall not obstruct or divert flood flow or reduce natural storage or increase stormwater runoff to the extent of raising the base flood elevation. Written certification such shall be provided by a registered professional engineer. 5, the proposed system of drainage and sewage disposal shall not cause pollution or otherwise endanger public health. 6, the proposed structures shall be constructed to counteract any buoyancy or water impacts. 7, the proposed construction shall have street or other appropriate vehicular access at least 1 foot above the base flood elevation. K, conditions of permit. In granting a special permit consistent with uses permitted in the district in which the site is located, the SPGA shall impose conditions designated to 1, safeguard the health and safety of occupants of the premises and of other land in and adjacent to the district. 2, ensure that the requirements of all local, state, and federal government agencies that will be necessary in order to carry out the proposed development in a floodplain overlay district have been met regarding but not limited to the following. A, placement of building or structure. B, type of foundation such as post with blowout panels. C, elevation of floors. D, method of anchoring buildings foundation. E, design of drainage system including private sewage disposal work. F, occupancy of buildings. G, area and depth of any excavation of fill. H, all flood proofing methods or proposals. L, compliance with other regulations. All development in the district, including structural and non-structural activities, whether permitted by right or special permit, must be in compliance with the following where applicable. 1, 780 CMR, Massachusetts State Building Code, sections of which address flood, plain, and coastal high hazard areas. 2, 310 CMR 10.00, Wetlands Protection Regulations, Mass Department of Environmental Protection. 3, 310 CMR 13.00, Inland Wetlands Restriction, Mass Department of Environmental Protection. 4, 310 CMR 12.00, Coastal Wetlands Restrictions, Mass Department of Environmental Protection. 5, 310 CMR 15, Title 5, Minimum Requirements for the Subsurface Disposal of Sanitary Sewage, Mass Department of Environmental Protection. 6, Chapter 1220, Wetlands, Braintree General Ordinance. M, recreation vehicles in A130 AH, AE zones, V130, VE, and V zones. All recreation vehicles shall be placed on a site, must be elevated and anchored in accordance with the zone's regulations for foundation and elevation requirements, or be on the site for less than 180 consecutive days, or be fully licensed and highway ready. N, watercourse alterations or relocations in riverine areas. In a riverine situation, the Town of Braintree Floodplain Administrator shall notify the following of any alteration or relocation of a watercourse. 1, adjacent communities, especially upstream and downstream. 2, bordering states if affected. 3, NFIP State Coordinator, Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation, 251 Causeway Street, 8th floor, Boston, Mass. 02114. 4, NFIP Program Specialist, Federal Emergency Management Agency, Region 1, 99 High Street, 6th floor, Boston, Mass. 02110. O, variances to Building Code floodplain standards. 1, no variances outlined in 135-407 of the Braintree zoning ordinance shall be granted from the Braintree zoning ordinance related to the community compliance with the NFIP. 2, the Town of Braintree shall request from the Building Code Appeals Board a written and/or audible copy of the portion of the hearing related to the variance and will maintain this record in the community's files. 3, the Town of Braintree shall also issue a letter to the property owner regarding potential impacts to the annual premiums for the flood insurance policy covering that property in writing over the signature of a community official that A, the issuance of a variance to construct a structure below the base flood level will result in increased premium rates for flood insurance up to amounts as high as 25 for 100 of insurance coverage. B, such construction below the base flood level increases risk to life and property. Such notification shall be maintained with the record of all variance actions for the reference development in the floodplain overlay district. P, requirement to submit new technical data. If the town, city acquires data that changes the base flood elevation in the FEMA mapped special flood hazard areas, the town, city will, within 6 months, notify FEMA of these changes by submitting the technical or scientific data that supports the changes. Notification shall be submitted to FEMA Region 1 Risk Analysis Branch Chief, 99 High Street, 6th floor, Boston, Mass. 02110, Massachusetts. NFIP State Coordinator, Mass Department of Conservation and Recreation, 251 Causeway Street, Boston, Mass. 02114. Ooh, wow.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Ryan. Let's hope that address doesn't change, so we don't have to read that again.
I feel kind of bad. I'm just going to say second, and then that's...
Thank you, Councilors Ryan and Ringus, for that record-setting motion. Clerk Semino, can we have a roll call, please?
Council Baraka.
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty.
Yes.
Councilor Hume.
Aye.
Councilor Mackin.
Aye, we need shorter motions.
Councilor Maglio.
Aye.
Councilor O'Brien.
Aye.
Councilor Reynolds.
Aye.
Councilor Ringus.
Aye.
Councilor Ryan.
Aye.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you. That is unanimous. The motion passes. Thank you, Director. All right, and thank you for sticking with us. For our next item on tonight's agenda is 23005, Mayor, acceptance of donations or take up any action relative thereto. I would refer to Councilor Reynolds, Chairman of the Committee of Ways and Means, for that committee's recommendation.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Ways and Means met this evening and recommended favorable recommendation from the full council, or for the full council.
Thank you very much, Councilor Reynolds. The Mayor's office like to speak?
Thank you. Good evening, Madam President. Hello, everybody. I really enjoy presenting these requests to the council because it's a reminder of how truly generous our community is. Tonight before you is a request on behalf of the Laurie Melchionda Foundation to donate two separate items. The first is $15,000 to help fund and furnish the nurse's office at the new South Middle School. And the second is to purchase 5 new automated external defibrillators, or AEDs, much like the one we saw utilized earlier this evening, for deployment in town buildings and in our schools as determined necessary. I think everybody here knows Laurie and is familiar with the incredible legacy that she left behind in Braintree, and I'm really proud to stand here and recognize her daughter Juliana and her husband Bob, who are here with us this evening, who have helped establish the foundation and approached us about making this incredibly generous donation so that Laurie's legacy and memory can truly live on. And Madam President, with your permission, I would invite Juliana to join me at the podium and to say a few words.
That would be wonderful. Thank you. Please come up.
Just a few, though, I think. So.
And just state your name and address for the record, please.
Juliana Melchionda, 1074 Washington Street. And, wow, I did not realize how tired I was.
Take your time.
Really, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to the town of Braintree. It's been overwhelming, the support that we've received, so it's an absolute honor to finally start giving back for all that you've shown for my family and I. So yeah, more to come. This is just the beginning, but you know, it is an honor to start to give back to the community, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any members of the council who would like to speak? Councilor Ringus?
Juliana and Mr. Melchionda, I just wanted to thank you, obviously, for being here tonight, for continuing sort of the legacy that your mom and your wife brought to our town. I was lucky enough to serve on the school committee, serve on various committees with her related to the partnership, and the passion she brought to every single endeavor that she undertook in Braintree, it just filled a room, and her legacy continues with you guys. So thank you so much for being here tonight and for this gift.
Thank you, Councilor Ringus. Any other councilors? Councilor Reynolds?
I think that was very well said, Counselor, and I think it's a beautiful gift of your mom's memory for our town, and she still provides for the people of Braintree. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Reynolds. I certainly echo that sentiment. And thank you to the Melchionda family for your continued service to our community in this way. Is there a motion?
Motion that the town of Braintree be and hereby is authorized in accordance with Section 53A of the Chapter 44 of the Massachusetts General Laws to accept the following gift upon the conditions attached and herein set forth. Donor, Laurie Melchionda Foundation, gift $15,000, purpose, South Middle School Nurse's Office. Donor, Laurie Melchionda Foundation, 5 automated external defibrillators, Town Hall and Braintree Schools. So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Councilors Ryan and Ringus. Clerk Semino, roll call vote, please.
Councilor Baraka.
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty.
Yes.
Councilor Hume.
Aye.
Councilor Mackin.
Aye.
Councilor Maglio.
Aye.
Councilor O'Brien.
Aye.
Councilor Reynolds.
Aye.
Councilor Ringus.
Aye.
Councilor Ryan.
Aye.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you again. All right, next section of our agenda this evening is our report from committees. At this time, I will turn it over to Councilor Maglio, who is the chairwoman of our Committee on Community Planning, for an update from that committee.
Thank you so much, Councilor Berica. The Community Planning Committee met twice in 2022. The last time the committee met was in 2017. So our first meeting with Councilor Elizabeth Maglio as chair, Councilor O'Brien as vice chair, and Councilor Reynolds as committee member was to review the committee description. The purview of the committee is to consider and report upon all matters relating to short-term planning and community renewal projects, as well as long-term community planning and visioning, and issues of sustainability in the environment. Our meetings were conducted via Zoom and attended by residents who were welcome to offer their comments and feedback during both meetings. Discussions to date have stemmed from items that were referred to the committee, specifically the MBTA Multifamily Housing Initiative, environmental sustainability to protect and leverage our public open spaces here in Braintree, and an interest in hearing from traffic experts on best practices for overall traffic calming and bike safety. We were fortunate to have the director of the planning department, Melissa Santucci-Razzi, and the assistant town solicitor, Crystal Huff, join us during our December meeting to provide a comprehensive update of the town's efforts to stay in compliance on the MBTA initiative. We look forward to continued meetings as we enter 2023. Respectfully submitted.
Thank you very much, Councilor Maglio, and appreciate your, Councilor O'Brien's and Councilor Reynolds' service on that committee. Thank you. Next, I just want to mention, I know we have residents in attendance, so the next item on our agenda this evening is referrals. These are procedural matters wherein we move proposals to their appropriate committees where they will be thoroughly vetted, debated, reviewed. Sometimes this is a lengthy process. However, all committee meetings are public, and they are open to the public. And please keep your eyes on the public meeting calendars, which is on the town website. Or, I always like to put in a plug for this, you can sign up for alerts via text or email. You can get the messages to you when these meetings are being held. So that can be accessed through our agenda or on the town website. So with that, is there a motion to move all measures under new business to their respective committees? So moved. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Councilors Ryan and Ringus. Clerk Semino, roll call to move to committee.
Councilor Berica?
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty?
Yes.
Councilor Hume?
Aye.
Councilor Mackin?
Aye.
Councilor Maglio?
Aye.
Councilor O'Brien?
I'm a no on 23004 and yes on all others.
Thank you. Councilor Reynolds?
Aye.
Councilor Ringus?
Aye.
Councilor Ryan?
Aye.
It's 8 in favor, 1 no on 23004.
Councilor Ryan?
Thank you. I was wondering if the chief of staff could come back up to the podium for a minute. So, Nicole, so I know that you're going to be leaving us in the town of Braintree. I'm wondering if this is the last meeting you're going to be coming to.
It very well might be, but I'm certainly happy to come back on the 28th if there are any items that need my attention or if the council so requests.
Okay.
I'm at the town's disposal till the end of the month.
You are going to be here on February 28th.
I was not planning to be in the office, but I can certainly be here.
Well, I'm not, so I guess I'll just say what I want to say right now.
I'm
It's,
happy to come back, Councilor Ryan. You don't have to do it now.
I can wait. Wait. I just don't
Thank you.
pass by and
Thank you.
tell you how thank you. You're welcome.
It's been an honor.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, thank you, Councilor Ryan, and thank you, Chief of Staff Taub. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, February 28th at 7:30 PM. This is because school vacation week is the third Tuesday in the month. So as always, thank you so much to B Camp for televising this and bringing our meetings to the residents. You can live stream it on YouTube or watch it after the fact. So with that, I would ask, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilors Ryan and Regis. Clerk Semino, roll call to adjourn.
Counselor Barica?
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty?
Yes.
Counselor Hume? Aye. Counselor Mackin? Aye. Counselor Maglio?
Aye.
Counselor O'Brien?
Aye.
Counselor Reynolds?
Aye.
Counselor Ringus?
Aye.
Counselor Ryan?
Aye.
All in favor to adjourn?
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.